day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. As you can see, it's cosplay week in Calgary. Actually, it's going to be 2 weeks worth of it where we get to pretend to be cowboys. So for you viewers on the Cowboy Network and RFD TV who actually know what real cowboys are, I'm paying homage to you guys. I understand I'm not one of you, but I really, give us our chance to pretend to be like you guys for a couple weeks a year. It's quite fun. And, the Stampede, it's a unique thing, actually, for folks who haven't been to Calgary for it. Every city has a festival. Every city has a fair and a parade, but there's nothing quite like Calgary where you get people just lightening up, wearing jeans to the office, putting hay bales around their business, holding pancake breakfasts. It's different than anywhere else. Some people get a little jaded with it over time, but really there is no other city holds anything quite like it. And it's quite fun. So bear with me. You're going to have to look at me in this cowboy duds for this week and next week. And then I'll be back to the normal jacket and studgy get up. All right, we've got a great show coming up ahead here. I've got a guest coming on in a while. I've been looking forward to talking to him. He's the CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union, Brett Oland. And they're set up in Alberta, and they are doing banking differently. Yes, it can be done differently, and it can be done better. And it's pretty exciting what these guys are doing. I'm really looking forward to talking to him about that. You don't have to go the old way with that anymore. So stay tuned. In 15 minutes or so, we will have Brett on to talk about it. And of course, we're going to have the news and the other things going on as well. So let me start, though. I want to talk about something I see as good news, a trend around the world right now. Nations that have traditionally swung left-wing are swinging back to the right in general elections. Media outlets, it's great to watch them, and every nation and every elitist jerk is howling about the trend, and they label every newly elected leader and party as far right. Well, not realizing all they're doing is strengthening the resolve of the citizens to wipe the woke from their government halls. Italy, Finland, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, and the Czech Republic, they have all elected global or conservative governments to the horror of global elites. Now, establishment media outlets are aghast as France is about to democratically shed its left-wing leadership. Argentina, they made the biggest swing from outright socialism to electing Javier Milei, who has acted without hesitation to cut their massive civil service and reform the government. Now, left-leaning pundits are terrified by the new leadership in Argentina. They're frightened that his policies are going to cause damage to Argentina. They're afraid the policies will succeed, because it'll be yet another one of those many, many examples that socialism doesn't work. In the United States, well, Donald Trump is poised to return to power this fall, and in Canada, the Trudeau government's poised to be crushed as soon as the citizens are given the chance to vote on it. Now, President Biden's clear dementia and Justin Trudeau's ongoing incompetence certainly contributed to the dramatic decline in support for their respective parties, but it's more than that. North Americans have had enough of the woke politics, and they're pushing back. We've been asking to embrace the absurd for too long. Cancel culture has gagged people long enough, and they're ready to stand up and finally say the emperor has no clothes. Orwell's 1984 was prescient in so many ways. He predicted the bizarre state enforcement of linguistic nonsense when the dystopian world he created had the government declare war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. But even Orwell never predicted just how ridiculous it was going to get in the real world. People are sick of being told to disregard what they see with their own eyes and that the common sense conclusions they've made are wrong. Citizens are tired of being told that athletes with penises are actually women, and it's fair to allow them to compete with real women in events. The claims of systemic racism are exhausting. In Chicago, a black lesbian extremist named Lori Lightfoot was elected as mayor. It's surprising they didn't cut off one of her legs to fill another checkbox of the woke. When she lost the next election, she blamed systemic racism. She was replaced by a black guy, but we're supposed to suspend reality in light of the woke. People can't cancel. They can't handle the economic abuse of green energy sources any longer. They're calling it out. They won't accept the myth that windmills can replace gasoline. They see their energy bills. They know what's going on. Rather than addressing the deepening social issues in minority communities in North America, policing was blamed, and the idiotic defund the police movement was embraced with catastrophic results in major cities in the United States and in Canada. The woke, only the woke, can keep a straight face and tell us that reducing policing is the best way to dealing with rising crime rates. Why don't we reduce teachers to help them teach students better? Oh yeah, the unions suddenly get a problem with that. While an addiction epidemic is raging, the woke are telling us the solution is to give them more drugs. I wish I was kidding. The cities that have embraced this have created dystopian ghettos populated with zombie-like addicts who are dying in record numbers. There's no such thing as a safe supply of meth, and citizens know it. In San Francisco, one of the most vibrant cities in North America, has been gutted as the woke have decriminalized petty crime. Citizens and businesses alike are fleeing. The biggest lie of all, though, is that mass immigration right now is sustainable and that it isn't causing the socioeconomic havoc that we are dealing with today. People are capable of seeing what's happening on their streets, and they understand that the economic havoc being caused through unrestrained immigration is a problem, particularly when most of the immigrants are coming from cultures that have serious issues with trying to integrate into nations with modern human rights practices. So while supplies in housing, healthcare, education, and every social service decline, citizens have had it with ivory tower arseholes chiding them for showing their concerns, and they're telling people that it has nothing to do with the floods of immigration. It's not racist to ask the government to tap the brakes and slow the rate of immigration to what we can manage, but that's what a person's accused of every time, and people have had enough. People, rather than trying to understand and address why citizens are democratically evicting woke administrations in their countries, the elitists in media and academia are scolding us. They accuse people of everything again, from racism, selfishness, extremism. They spit out the word populism as if it's a terrible thing. Well, it's another term for democracy, actually, guys. They loathe the very idea that the unwashed masses can impose their will through elections. They'd best be wary. If the majority can't effect change democratically, they'll bring it about through less peaceful means. So don't crap on the elections, guys. It's the safest way to go, and they won't be stopped. Everything goes in cycles. The world's on the brink of another heyday in conservative leadership, like we saw in the 80s with Reagan, Thatcher, and even Brian Mulroney. Hopefully, the democratic course correction goes as smoothly as possible, and citizens shed the idiocy of woke socialism around the world. The change in course will be a positive for us all, as long as the establishment allows democracy to run its course. If democracy doesn't denied, well, the transition could be uglier, but it's coming all the same. And yeah, I know, give it 2 more generations and they'll swing the pendulum right back to stupidity, but that'll be their problem to deal with then. I'm optimistic, though, for the next 10, 15 years, guys. We're finally moving in the right direction. Okay, enough on that. Let's get in the direction of the newsroom. We got Dave in person in the newsroom again, because the adoring fans said they like that crystal clear picture of having you here in person rather than on the monitor.
I don't know about adoring fans, Cory, but certainly my mother says this is way better. So, and Yahoo to you too.
Thanks. Yes, I pull off that cowboy look so convincingly, right? I look like I got right off the horse.
Are you taking the quilting roadshow that you run down to Stampede this year?
Well, Jane's got a quilting display down there, quilting display. I'll not be attending it as I did with Quilt Canada. I've done my annual pilgrimage.
You've done your penance. So, hey, speaking of the readership, getting lots of letters, lots of calls. People want to know. So I've got to ask, how's your starfish?
The starfish is fine, but about 4 inches to the left of it. Yes, I did have a surgery on my left butt cheek, which is part of why I'm sitting more uncomfortably than usual.
Yeah, you did look uncomfortable in the newsroom today, that's for sure.
It's a recovery. I've been waiting for 2 years for this thing to get. It's just a lipoma removal, which is just for the people who are eating lunch, a ball of fat that builds up. It's harmless but annoying and can get uncomfortable. And finally, I had the opportunity to have a doctor cut that out last Friday. But now, yes, my arse is very tender.
So the people that said you're always full of crap were correct.
Yes, basically. One way or another, it's going to come out of my backside.
So we've had a busy news morning already, Cory. Liberal Cabinet Minister Garrettson has come out in an interview and said, people used to like the carbon tax. It was okay in 2018, 2019, but only since Pierre Poilievre started talking about it has there been opposition. And of course, there's much laughter to this. Might have something to do with them raising it many times over. Speaking of cabinet ministers, Natural Resources Minister Wilkinson in Calgary today, or Sean Polzer, asked him about the by-election in Toronto last week that sent shockwaves through the nation. And Wilkinson said he's got complete confidence, quote unquote, in Justin Trudeau as a leader, and he's going to stick right by him as they plow into the ground. The Liberals are now, speaking of immigration, Cory, the Liberals are now looking at buying hotels across the country to house migrants. They're spending millions and millions of dollars a year on this, so they think money could be better spent if they bought a odd hotel and put them up there. Speaking of lots of wasted government money, EV subsidies. You remember the Swedish company Northvolt got $7 billion of Canadian money. They're going to build a big EV plant in Quebec. Well, their CEO came out yesterday and said, "Hey, maybe not so fast. We might be expanding a little too fast, so we have to reconsider everything." So that's put a bit of a shock into the system, except for the Canadian Pension Plan, who invested another $400 million today into Northvolt. Manitoba people who want to get their own EV they're all now for the first time being able to get government rebates, so they'll be happy about that. Trudeau's Islamophobia czar came out yesterday and said businesses are not hiring Muslim men who support Palestine. I don't know what to say about that, Cory. Maybe they're all in the protest camps and aren't available to work. But anyways, that's what she says. Columnist Adam Zivo takes a look at the drug safe supply scandal and how the people that support it still are now having to go to wacky conspiracy theories to keep up their support. And for the first time ever, Canada's got a female top soldier. Trudeau today appointed Lieutenant General Jenny Kerrigan as the Chief of Defence Staff, replacing General Wayne Erie. So that's what we've got. Those are the big ones at the moment. Lots more up there I haven't mentioned, and lots more to come this afternoon.
And again, as we point out, Stampede. I mean, are you going to be stampeding this year?
Well, you mentioned the word jaded.
Yes, in your monologue.
I mean, this is as Western as I get, to be honest. I could maybe throw on a pair of jeans, but I don't have gaudy shirts like that. And
gaudy,
I mean, wonderful shirts like that. It's just not me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, and it's just part of what I was saying. At the start was sometimes those Calgarians, we can take it for granted, even if not all of us feel we have to go down to the grounds every year and do all that. It is still a kind of a unique festival every year that Calgary gets to hold, even if not every one of us gets as
and I've got all the respect in the world for working cowboys and the jobs they do, and the rodeo athletes are amazing. It's just everything else that surrounds it has become too much.
Yeah. Oh, well, only a couple weeks to go now, Dave.
A couple of weeks to go.
Okay, well, thank you for the update and joining us in studio. I'll let you get back to the newsroom and start clawing through the rest of those news stories there, Dave.
Thanks, Cory.
Right on. That is our news editor, Dave Naylor. This is when I like to pause and remind you all the reason we can pay to have such fine talent as Dave in the studio like this, or having the lesser talent like myself in the studio and the reporters and all those stories, is because you guys have been subscribing. We do not take tax dollars. We won't. And because you guys have been subscribing, we were able to stay that way. So we appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed yet, guys, come on. $9.99 a month, $100 for a year. Get past that paywall, get straight to those stories, and it allows us to keep giving you independent coverage where we aren't beholden to anybody on what we're going to write about, what we're going to report on, and what we're going to do. So check it out, westernstandard.news/subscription. Take one out, and hey, nag your friends, get them on board. Legacy media is going the way of the dodo, guys. This is the future. Let's build it. All right. Let's get to my guest. I see him in the lobby, and I have been looking forward to this, speaking of the future and doing things differently. And it's the CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union, Brett Oland. He's out actually at the Bitcoin Rodeo. We talked to Dave Bradley about that the other week on here, and Brett's down there whilst I'm in studio, and he's kindly joining us from the floor. So how's it going out there, Brett?
Pretty good. This rhinestone cowboy has got his cowboy boots on, and that's about as far as I go. I might get a hat on once in a while, but there you go.
Yeah, you see, I'm only showing from the waist up, so I've got the hat and the shirt, but I'm wearing dress shoes. But we can pretend once in a while.
There you go.
So a lot of people are familiar with you, and actually I'd had a couple of people ask me to bring you on, and thrilled to. I've caught you presenting in a couple of places. As I said at the start, you guys are, you're presenting banking and banking services, but you're quite distinct and different from other banks. Maybe I'll let you just kind of pick up from there on what is it with Bow Valley Credit Union that is unlike other financial institutions.
Sure. It probably stems back from what is the difference between like a credit union and a big bank. And so a credit union is regulated by the provincial government rather than the federal government is really the crux of it. We also have 100% deposit guarantee, compared to the bigger banks, which only have $100,000 guarantee. Specifically, what's different about Bow Valley Credit Union is what we've seen in our past. And as we all know, we've gone through a bit of a tough time in the last 3 years or so, and we did a lot of things that made us a lot more outstanding. First of all, we didn't force any of our staff to get vaccinated with the COVID-19 shot, which is much different than the bigger banks, which actually force their staff to get vaccinated. Secondly, when the trucker convoy was going on, we were one of the first ones, if not the only ones, to stick up our hand and say, this is not right that you're freezing people's bank accounts. And we were lucky enough that we never had to freeze anybody's accounts. As we soon noted just previously, that it was deemed illegal to actually freeze people's bank accounts. And then thirdly, we're very concerned about people's well-being within our organization and see the constant inflation that seems to be worming its way through society today because of so much printed money. And we're making efforts to basically protect our membership and our organization against what we see as constant inflation going forward throughout the years. Hence, why we're at the Bitcoin rodeo and why we continue to absorb gold and silver on our balance sheet as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, the first two parts are outstanding. I mean, you're an organization that's standing up on principle for your employees and for your clients. I mean, few did. They just kind of go with the flow and the government push. And I just really applaud you guys for making that stance, because we know the pressure had to be huge. But the difference, that's something that takes a little more explaining, but it's really important that you're bringing more of a metal-based security, a precious metal-based security to back the assets of your bank. And it acts as, I guess, a hedge against fiat currency. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. When we first started looking at this, I think it took me by surprise, and this goes way back to 2008 during the Great Financial Crisis, where governments around the world basically bailed out all the banks. And at the time, I thought that would be incredibly inflationary. I turned out to be wrong in that regard, just because it was tied up in the banking system. But this time, when they printed trillions and trillions of dollars in 2020 to give COVID relief and checks out to everybody, basically they locked everybody in a cage, stopping production, and gave them stimulus checks. And so I knew that was going to be massively inflationary. And sure enough, we're starting to see it: energy prices, housing prices, grocery prices, just about everywhere you look. You're seeing this constant burden of inflation. And that is because the governments around the world injected massive amounts of currency into society. So now we wanted to be able to protect our membership and our organization against that constant inflation. And you need to do it with a hedge such as gold and silver, which has stood the test of time throughout history, that goes and rises during times of inflation. And basically, the motto is a rich man's suit 2,000 years ago cost about a gold coin. And today, it holds true. A gold coin in Canada has a face value of about $50, but it actually has a market value of about $3,300. So if you think about a fine man's suit, a fine tailored suit, shoes, belt, hat if you want, cane if you want, it has the same amount of buying power. And so we're leaning on that within our organization to basically protect our membership from that inflation that is going to be persistent over the next coming decade.
Yeah, and I mean, the inflation, we knew it was going to be coming, or at least any economists worth their salt. When the money was being printed, when the money was being borrowed, inflation is always soon to follow. I mean, when you add printed currency into the monetary supply, the purchasing power of it's going to decline. But again, precious metals have long been known as such a hedge. Are there any other, though, financial institutions using precious metals as a means to protect against that sort of thing?
As far as I know, no financial institution in Canada holds gold and silver on their balance sheet. And as far as I know, that there are some out there that help protect individuals, but the thing is, we're really leaning into it. And so we're using a lot of our partnerships to get wholesale purchasing of gold and silver, so we can actually extend that to our membership. We recently launched gold collateral lending, so you can actually lend against your gold and silver. So if you have, say, $10,000 in gold or silver, oops, your furnace blows up, you can actually lend against that without selling it. And it works like a HELOC, or home equity line of credit. So you can get access to fiat currency, so Canadian dollars, without actually selling your gold and silver. And so that's effectively what you want to try and do, is hold on to as much gold and silver for as long as you can. And the thing is, I always have to encourage people, don't go overboard. Don't ever spend every single red cent buying gold and silver or Bitcoin. That's not what it's designed to do. But have a little bit in your portfolio, and a little bit will go a long way.
Yeah, and you guys are buying actual physical precious metals. Like, you're not just something on a balance sheet or an investment fund or something like that. Like, you're actually purchasing the physical gold and silver.
Correct. Yeah. So there's a big theory out there that for every ounce of physical gold or silver, there's 100 contracts for that piece of gold and silver. So if you got sold a piece of paper that said you're entitled to one piece of gold or something like that, if push came to shove, if everybody came to that counter at the same time and wanted that piece of gold, there would also be 99 other people in that line to basically vie for that piece of gold. So it's important that you own physical gold and silver, just not paper contracts or EFTs or some other rendition of actual physical gold and silver.
So you guys have been kind of shaking the establishment a little bit, though, and you've been getting some pushback. I saw quite a hit piece, actually, in the Toronto Globe about you guys and your efforts. But, I mean, it was kind of a ridiculous piece when you read it, but they just couldn't seem to explain why they were upset, but they were upset.
Yeah, it's hard to know what happened there. And I think it was a conjunction with a number of other things that we did. We were involved with bringing Tucker Carlson to Alberta. The left generally has a big problem with that. And we're looking for something to grab onto. But the funny thing is anybody that's in this world that recognizes that inflation is out of control and that these governments are out of control, we're right on point with what we're saying. And it's pretty hard to argue with the fact that your grocery prices have doubled in the last 3 years, that housing prices have basically doubled in the last 3 years. More and more, the youth of society are disenchantized with the way the direction is going, because they can't get high enough paying jobs to actually get into the housing market. So we're actually in a phase of what's called a K-shaped recovery. So the rich continue to get richer and the poor continue to get poorer. And that line of who's rich and poor continues to thin out every day. And so it's turning into be the ultra rich are the ones that are doing successful, and the ultra poor are just continue going down, and more people are falling out of the middle class. And that's exactly what we're trying to protect against, is get people getting into that trap of a debt cycle, falling into living paycheck to paycheck, having no assets, and basically being beholden to somebody else, like the left-leaning politicians, for everything that they have in life.
Yeah, well, and your messaging and your product have been well received. Your credit union's been opening new branches and expanding quite quickly, which is fantastic to see. A question I hadn't even thought of, though, as I get on to where your services are available. From one of the commenters, she's in Ontario, though. She's wishing there was a Bow Valley Credit Union there, but asking if another province or a resident of another province could have an account in your credit union, or is it just for Albertans at this point?
For the most part, it is just for Alberta individuals and businesses. If you do have sort of a family member that you could be a co-signer on account for, that's a way into it. Or if you have a corporation that's registered within Alberta, that's a way to deal with it. But unfortunately, because of our regulations, we are Alberta bound, and we intend to keep it that way, because the thing is, we do not want to be regulated federally.
Oh, I understand that. So sorry, Denise, what you're going to have to do is move to Alberta, and hey, conservatives are welcome to come on out and, just share the wealth out here. So where are your branches currently, and where are you guys looking to expand?
So currently, our branches are in Banff, Canmore. Our head office is in Cochrane. We have 2 branches in Airdrie, 1 in Calgary, and our newest branch that we opened just at the beginning of May is in Atchison, which is just west of Edmonton. We plan on opening a branch in Red Deer by November 1st of 2024, and then shortly after that, we're going to have a location open in South Calgary as well. So we continue to open branches because we recognize that people want bricks and mortar. People actually want to talk to other people when they're doing their banking. They don't want to talk to a phone. They don't want to talk to a robot. They don't want to talk to somebody in Bangladesh. They want to talk to a person right across the desk so they can look at them eye to eye and understand where their life savings are going.
Well, made in Alberta and for Albertans, I have to love that, and obviously a lot of people are. So that's great. Before I let you get back to that Bitcoin rodeo, then what more would you like to add, and how can people, I guess, take part? I mean, you offer banking services like any other. Where would you direct them to start?
Sure. Yeah, we're a full-service financial institution. We offer personal banking, business banking, commercial banking, pretty much everything that a bigger financial institution does, we can do. As a smaller credit union. We're locally owned by our membership. And to be part of that membership, all you need to do is just go online to bowvalleycu.com and poke around our website a little bit and figure out if we're a financial institution for you.
Right on. Well, thank you for taking the time to come to talk to us. I know our audience is appreciated, and I'm really looking forward to you guys continuing to take the Albertan banking world by storm. It's really important to have, somebody in there offering this kind of service.
Happy to come out and thank you for inviting me, and happy Stampede.
Right on. Thanks. You too. All right. So, yes, that was Brett Oland, CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union. As he said, Bow Valley CU, you can get more information on it and follow through. I see I missed that with a comment from Judy and Jim asking when he might be opening in Grand Prairie. I don't know, but Atchison isn't that far away when you get to that point. And at the speed they're going, perhaps it won't be too long. And check out the website. They're very open with communication and where they're going. It's just, this is something you don't see that often. We don't see big changes. You don't see innovation in the financial sector. It's just kind of, well, this is the way it's always been done, and this is the way we do it. That's part of why he's getting the pushback he is because, he's shaking up the old establishment. This is an establishment that needs shaking. A lot of what I said in that terrible piece in the Globe was that, these playing on people's fears, that people that don't trust the current financial situation. Well, there's a lot of people that don't trust the current financial situation, and investing in an area that would provide a hedge, why not? Why not offer that option to people? Why do we feel that we have to compel and mash everybody into a model? We've seen a lot of people going broke under the current model. And yeah, they I believe, he didn't expand on that, but when I saw another one of his presentations, when they decided they were not going to force their staff to become vaccinated, they allowed people to choose, as it always should have been everywhere. They lost a couple of board members over that. Like, there's always pressures, even people within, but he said, we were better off without them. I love that frank attitude. The bulk of their board obviously said, well, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. And they stuck to their principles. I'm certain many of their staff chose to be vaccinated, and many chose not to. Welcome to free choice. This shouldn't be that complicated. But seeing businesses in established industries like that, making stances like that, is unfortunately way too rare. But if they'll stand up on principle like that for their staff, and hey, I'm not paid by them, by the way. I'm just excited by what they provide. So honest, we're not getting anything for this. But if they'll stand up for their staff like that, they'll more than likely, it looks like they're going to stand up for you if you're one of their customers, or it's a credit union if you're one of the members. So yeah, I'm glad he came out to talk with us. That was interesting stuff going on. So let's see here. Speaking of, let's talk about not being able to trust the world of finances, not being able to trust government. Trudeau yet again talking with Paul Kershaw. Now, Paul Kershaw is an activist kook. He's a nutcase. He's a socialist. His whole organization out of University of BC is called Generation Squeeze. And it's all focused on basically what he feels is an inequity, an unfairness, because some people own homes and some don't. And they want a home equity tax. They want to steal the equity from people who own homes and redistribute it to other people. Now, it's fine. There's kooky professors with kooky ideas all over. The problem is Justin Trudeau keeps going to this guy, keeps consulting with this guy, keeps paying him for studies on home equity taxes. He had him at a cabinet retreat speaking to them all on how to set up a home equity tax. They want to steal the money in your homes. They're running out of ways to fund themselves. That's the biggest asset pool in Canada, is private homeowners. And here he is yet again. Trudeau giving a private town hall to these guys, one-on-one, a prime minister sitting down. They keep denying they want to steal your home equity. Well, then why are you constantly rubbing shoulders with a man whose whole being is stealing your home equity? Guys, Trudeau's losing his mind, what little he ever had. We're seeing that. We're seeing that with his bizarre dancing, his bizarre actions. His party, his world is crumbling around him. He's desperate. He's stupid. And I won't put it beyond him, with all the fart catchers he's surrounded himself with, that people won't stop him. He will make a desperation grab for home equity, thinking it'll be the way to buy the support of youth back that he lost. And then take that money and maybe do a universal basic income program or something as insane as that. Why else is this man sitting down with Paul Kershaw, this man whose whole essence and being is to steal the home equity from people? Be worried, guys. Be very, very worried. Now, here's some other stuff over the weekend. So, came to the end of Pride Month. And I know people are overwhelmed with Pride, everything, Pride this, Pride that. It never bothered me that much, but it seems to be overplayed, but whatever. But some of the stuff that's happening now at Pride parades, we saw in Toronto, their Pride parade was canceled by Palestinian thugs. Yeah, a bunch of pro-Hamas sorts and these queers for Palestine, these fools, stood in the middle of the road. There's like 20 or 30 of them. And Toronto's Pride parade was one of the biggest in North America. And they didn't know what to do. They were afraid to confront them, so they just shut down the parade. That was it. We'll stop here. Okay. So again, you've given in to the extremists. Angry Canadians say Pride Month's now Naked Month. That's the other thing. Like, why do we get to see a bunch of fat middle-aged men dancing around with their little dongs in the nude? This is not what this whole thing was started for, but whatever. It's their organization, but it's dying. It's falling apart, and they're letting the extremists, or they've let the extremists take it over, and they've let themselves get bullied. New York, their Pride parade disrupted by Palestinian thugs as well, and they let it that disrupted into fights and rioting. In Syria, a Syrian gang is suspected anyways. This was at news in Halifax, and there's video of that. A bunch of young men who it appears to be Syrian immigrants beat a lesbian couple brutally in Halifax. And, what are we coming to? Is this Pride getting better? And, so I'll tell something that's been very interesting recently. Jane and I got invited to a housewarming for a new couple out in my area. We're in a rural area, outside of the city. Fantastic couple, great host. I'm not Mr. Sociable, but Jane's tapped into the community networks and so on. And this couple moved to the area and really wanted to get to know the neighbors. They're really outgoing, fun people, fantastic hosts, beautiful couple. It was a great time. They finally kind of mentioned, once the wine got flowing a bit, though, why'd you leave Calgary? You'd been there a long time. I said, well, the community, again, was getting a little uncomfortable as it was becoming, very overwhelmed with immigrants. Now, I found this a little funny because both of this couple had come to Canada from other countries. They're immigrants as well. So, well, you're uncomfortable with immigrants, but you're immigrants yourself. But yes, the point of this couple is a married couple of men. They're a beautiful couple. They're fantastic people. But this is the irony of where things have gone. Now, the immigrants they're speaking of are ones that are not comfortable with married same-sex people. And they aren't having the neighborliness they wanted to have. They don't have the community they wanted to have. They can't walk down the street hand in hand because a lot of the immigrants are coming from countries where they throw gay people off buildings. And they certainly don't hide their disdain for gay couples, and they certainly wouldn't come to their home for housewarmings or invite them to community participation. So they picked up and they moved to a rural area. Now think of how things have changed. it used to be that a lot of LGBTQ people, if they were born in a rural area, often actually had to really stay in the closet because they weren't well treated or well tolerated by rural communities often in the past. And eventually they would gravitate to the cities where they could find community and live comfortably. That was part of the point of Pride, was bringing it out so you don't have to hide, you don't have to be in the closet. Now it's come full circle where LGBTQ community members are getting the hell out of the cities because they've let the insane activists take over the cities. They've let the immigrants from countries that are completely intolerant. And we got to start saying that. We got to be blunt about it. Countries that are very intolerant of their community. So they're moving to the country to get away from that. They're moving to rural areas to find the tolerance they can't get in the cities. You know, again, when I'm talking about pendulum swinging, right? When I'm talking about things going full circle, this is where we're at now. The cities are becoming uninhabitable. We've got to start calling some of this out. And I know, well, there's some Catholics who are pretty gnarly with LGBTQ. There certainly are some, but there's certainly a smaller amount than it ever used to be. And there's no Catholic nations throwing gay people off of buildings lately, to my knowledge, nor Hindu, nor Buddhist, nor many other nations. It seems to be one particular sector that has a big beef with it, and that's where we're bringing a heck of a lot of folks in from. I'm not saying we stop, but maybe we start doing some values testing on some of the immigrants we're bringing in too. I mean, we reduce the volume so we can help people adjust when they get to Canada. And also, yeah, if they, you know, and I asked on the questionnaire, you know, what's your reaction to this picture of two men holding hands, and they say, I should chop off their head in the name of Allah. Maybe we should decline their immigration application. That's just me, but maybe we've gotten a hint that they might not integrate well into the community out here. And angry Canadians say, yeah, hey, quiet if you have a small town that's quiet, you know, don't tell anyone. Yeah, I know, it's the secret that's happening, right? The people are escaping. The bottle's been corked. It's getting untenable, and they're moving out. But think about that. They can't even hold pride parades in the cities anymore, and the police aren't intervening. You know, if it had been a bunch of retread KKK members, you know, they threw some pillowcases on their heads and you know, their little symbols, and started goose stepping around in the pride parades to disrupt them. Do you know how fast those guys would have been arrested and hustled off and charged for trying to disrupt that parade? It would have been, your head would spin how fast it would happen. But because it's pro-Palestine people, well, now suddenly they're not sure we're in the victimhood hierarchy and woke hierarchy and who we're supposed to intervene and everything else. And finally they just said, oh, sorry, guys and gals, you're on your own. You know, hey, queers for Palestine, queers for Palestine. It's absurd. So no wonder. Hey, fine. I'm getting better neighbors for it. Great community-minded professionals, but I still feel for the people who can't afford to get out of the cities as they watch this kind of decline. I feel bad for the people, too, from the ethnic communities, from the religions, where some of the problematic bunches are coming from. But, of course, they're not all like that, but they're starting to get to wear all of that stigma. We've really got to readjust things, and we got to start saying again, the emperor has no clothes with some of these things. We're not having this problem with Hindus. We're not having this problem, you know, with many other faiths. So let's start saying, why is there such a problem with this particular bunch? Or we can just give up and leave the LGBTQ community on their own to be harassed and pushed around and bullied by hate groups that will disrupt their events. Can you believe that's happening now after everything we get put through? And this is what's going on now. It's madness. Speaking of that madness, how is it, working your butt off? How's it with your kids? You're trying to build a future for them. They're going through school. They got a bunch of student loans. They did all the right things. They're in the working world. They're paying their bills. They know that under Trudeau's Canada, thanks to the squeezing of supply, that a house is probably going to take them 20 years to save for, so they're still living with roommates well into their 20s and paying rent on a small shack. Oh, but they're going to get their tax dollars taken away and put towards buying hotels. Yeah, as Dave mentioned, buying hotels to house more immigrants. How bad is it going to have to get before they finally say, maybe we need to slow down? It's insane. But things are insane right now. Trudeau's out of his mind. He really is. I mean, again, you see him dancing around. He is cloistered himself with a bunch of, again, as I said, fart catchers. They've shielded him from reality, and he's just marching along. It shows how sick the Liberal Party, or even maybe I'll call it all Canadian politics all on its own, where this partisanship is so entrenched that just not enough, because they're the only ones who can get up and pull that madman down while he drags this country into the dirt like this. And we're all suffering. New Canadians are suffering because of it. Born Canadians, it doesn't matter. And it's such a tragedy because we have such a fantastic country. We got the resources. We've got a great culture. We've got a great mix of cultures. It really was coming along well, but we overplayed it. We went too far, but we got to, again, tap the brakes, save what we can. We've got what could be still a great country. But no, instead of accepting that we might have to reduce the amount of migrants we're pouring in, he's saying we'll just buy hotels and stick them in there. Great. I wish I could live at the Hyatt. Let's get real here. But you see, here's some of the attitude from the government as well. Government spokespeople must correct Canadians' thinking. This is coming from a report by a Treasury Board President, Anita Anand. We got to correct Canadians' thinking. You see, the problem is we're too stupid. That's what they feel. We're too stupid to understand just how brilliant the Liberals really are. We just need our thinking corrected. And that's what the problem is. We just don't understand how brilliant and great they are. And I think they've drank enough of their own bathwater that these goofy Liberals are actually believing their own stuff now. It's quite something else to be seen. Speaking of, the other latest scandals, I'm trying to find that out there. It's well, here's another beauty. The government knew millions were wasted. Speaking of blowing our money, speaking of our inflation, speaking of why we're going broke, Public Works, in an internal document, acknowledged it knew within months its $700 million pandemic ventilator program was a waste of money. The rest of us knew that during the pandemic too. I think anybody with common sense, but not the government. $700 million. And I love how this article is polite. It contradicts testimony by then Public Works Minister Anita Anand. Hey, there's that name again, eh? So those Liberals, they just shift them around to different spots. Contradicts testimony. It's a nice way to say she lied. She lied. If we lie to the courts, if we lie in testimony, if we lie in those sorts of things, we get charged. In the Liberal government, they get promoted. The corruption, the level with which the government is broken, this country is becoming broken, is out of control. And the other one that's not making, I think, enough noise right now is the scandal with Canadian, the debacle when we evacuated Afghanistan. And I'm just trying to find the article. I thought I had it here, but so we had the minister in charge of the military, though, at that time, basically directing his friends, or directing Canadian Special Forces to rescue a bunch of, the term is sick now. I was Sikhs all my life. You know who I mean, that particular group. To rescue them, 200 and some of them, and pull them out of Afghanistan before the Taliban took over. A lot of people should be rescued before the Taliban took over, but the problem is Canada abandoned hundreds and hundreds of interpreters to their fate in Afghanistan. Ones who put literally their families and their lives on the line for the sake of Canadians who were serving in Afghanistan, who were acting as intermediaries, who were acting as translators, who were doing that job, knowing that they were putting themselves at dire risk if the Taliban should ever take over again. But the reason they did it was the Canadian government promised. They said, don't worry, we will protect you. We'll take care of you. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Once the crap hit the fan, the Canadians were out of there so fast your head would spin. The dust was flying in clouds. The embassy gone. They were toast. There were Afghans desperately, literally clinging to the wings of planes, trying to get out of there. And then it turns out that we actually sent our special forces to rescue 200 non-Canadians. In fact, people with no connection to Canada whatsoever. None. But they seem to have a connection to the Liberal Minister of Defense at the time. This is serious, serious business. And it turns out a Sikh organization happened to be donating to his election efforts in the past. There's a shocker, right? When people talk about how dangerous foreign interference in Canadian affairs is, there's a pretty good example of it. But what a shame. What an embarrassment. You know, those people who put in, and Linda Slobodian did a fantastic documentary on it. There's his name, Sajan. It was the minister. I just didn't want to say the wrong name. But his 6 sponsors donated to his riding association during the evacuations. Just coincidentally, they decided, let's toss some money into his riding. So basically, they bought the evacuation of 200 of their pals while Canada was abandoning those who helped them out. And this head of our defense facilitated that, put Canadian Special Forces on the ground, I imagine putting themselves at risk as well. And nothing against the people who got evacuated, but you are abandoning the ones you were supposed to be there for. What a pathetic state of affairs. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's true. Canada is broken. And that's a great example of it. All right. I'm going to be going pretty quickly here, guys. I'm going to be at an event this weekend. It's called Freedom Talk. It's in Red Deer at the Capri. You can check it out at freedomtalk.ca. There's going to be some speakers, Michael Binion, Andrew Lawton, even Maxime Bernier, Stockwell Day. And they're going to cover some of these issues and things too. Just giving a heads up. Come on out to Red Deer this weekend, Friday, Saturday, freedomtalk.ca. A lot of good speeches and stuff going on. Again, it's not sponsored. It's just I'm going to happen to be out there. So kind of throwing the invite out there. Come on out, say hi, check it out. And keep watching that news. Watch the pipeline. We'll be covering things in a lot more depth and breaking those down a little later tonight. And next week, I'm going to have Adam Zivo on after so rudely sort of disrupting his interview last week. And we're going to talk about the enablement cult with addiction. So thank you all for tuning in this week, guys. Really appreciate it. Happy Stampede to those in Calgary. And, happy Stampede to those who aren't here. Come on out and enjoy it if you get the chance. And I'll see you all again next week.